Hello and welcome to the Buildup here in Balsity in partnership with Ladbrokes, where every week we look ahead to the biggest events of the sporting weekend. Now, we are going to look ahead to the Premier League with Kevin Doyle in just a couple of minutes. It's back this weekend after the international break. But what an international break it was for Ireland and Stephen Kenny, Kevin, because 2 wins out of 2, 7 goals scored, none conceded. We were here last week just begging for a clean sheet and maybe a forward to score. And, you know, we got 5 goals from one forward in the end.
Yeah, brilliant. It was well deserved as well. The 2 games we created. We looked like we could score at every opportunity, which we haven't done in a long time. Like last, I know, listen, it's Qatar, but still we've struggled against them in the past. The same with Azerbaijan. Like Callum Robinson could have had a hat-trick or more against Azerbaijan as well, and only got 2. But you know, we created chances going forward, and we weren't as welded to the have to play it out from the back, take our time, build up slowly. We weren't as welded to that as we had been earlier on. We mixed it up a bit more. We moved the ball a lot quicker. We went through the lines a lot quicker. Whether that's a thing they've worked on or spoke about that they need to do things quicker, or it just comes naturally with confidence, I don't know. But it just seemed to me to be a little bit more direct, a little bit more focused on getting the ball through to strikers quickly, doing things earlier, taking people on, creating chances. And as we spoke about, clean sheet, make 2 clean sheets, makes it a lot easier when you don't concede, takes the pressure off the strikers. And we scored some great goals. Really enjoyable watching the games. I said to you just before we come on here, my 8-year-old son, first time I think he's seen us win. Game live, and he was like, are we going to win the World Cup now? You know what, just a bit of positivity, smile on faces. And that winning those 2 games, and like the other argument is, listen, they're the ones we expected them to be winning anyway. They were the ones we said, listen, if you can win those games and build from there. But winning those 2 games means it takes the pressure off other results. So it means we don't have to beat Portugal to save his job or different things like that. It means he can work and build in those games. These are the bread and butter ones that he wins, and then he can do that bit of a building project, keeps us all, everyone on side, everyone happy. You see the wins in the games we should be winning and playing well, and seeing a sort of, you know, we beat those teams in the past, but I don't know if we've played as well and looked as stylish beating those teams in the past. So positive couple of games.
Can I ask actually what that feels like in a camp? Because you've been in with lots of Ireland managers, and it isn't always as linear as this, but it does feel like you have your up when everything is kind of positive and you're looking forward to the future and you've got the manager, and then you generally have a long enough decline where people will realize it at different points of it, but generally people are on the same page that we know this is coming to an end one way or another. Now, Stephen didn't really have that sharp increase at the start because things went so badly, but it feels like they're on that curve now at least. So when they're coming back in a month's time, one, how does that feel going into the camp? Does it make a massive difference? And then secondly, that obviously I would imagine helps performance as well, just having that bit of confidence.
Yeah, you can really just let a breath out and go, means the next interview I do, because literally every interview they've done for the last year is how you want to turn it around, what you want to do, is the manager the right man for the job? All the players, you know, when are we going to score? How are we going to score? Strikers aren't scoring. There's no one playing in the Premier League, blah, 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 blah. And that's all they've heard, you know, in their head for every interview. And, you know, it just lets you go, we can come into the next squad now. You know, we've bought ourselves. They bought themselves, you know, probably saved the managers, or sort of guaranteed the manager's job anyway. I don't know what there was going to be, imagine a sit down at the end, but I imagine those 2 results now have made it, you know what, we can see a bit of progress. I'm talking about the CEOs and the people who make these decisions. They can see the heck was a full house, or as many as they could have with restrictions of COVID and all that. So all that, everything just means the players, the manager, they can you know, just enjoy the next group, not feel under near as much pressure, and hopefully see it and even, you know, better performances because of that. But as I said, these 2 games just give them that leeway to allow, you know, people accept you losing to Portugal, accept you maybe losing to Serbia if they can see you're building, but they don't accept you losing or not beating the Luxembourgs and the Qatars and the Azerbaijans, which we haven't done up to this point. But those 2 games now allow us a little bit, and the manager and the players a bit of leeway to work on.
And a lot of public support there as well. So I think that's reinforced. You know, that can only last so long if the results aren't coming. But, you know, you mentioned, we are beating these teams. We weren't really beating them handily. We weren't dominating games. We weren't beating them 3-4-0. I think back to Gibraltar, you know, in the last campaign under Mick, where we beat them 1 and 2-0, and even the 2-0 at home came in deep in injury time for the second goal. And, you know, we had this way about us that was like hard to beat, right? And we couldn't adjust that when we played the smaller teams, right? But You mentioned earlier that Stephen maybe has adjusted his style, or Ireland have adjusted their style one way or another, to possibly a little bit more direct now. Is a lot of this just us finally having an international manager or an international team or whatever it is that says, you know what, there's loads of ways to play football. Here's who we're playing today, and let's go out and do it. Where it felt in the past, and this goes back to your day when this idea, whether it's true or not, that you threw out the game plan against France and just said, let's go for it.
I keep telling you that's not true, mate.
But it's always been the perception that Ireland are told to go out and play a slightly reductive game, which is grand because we had the players that were able to go and get results in France and get results in against really tough teams away from home and stay in the process in contention for qualification. But now it's like we have to try something new. But we also need Stephen Kenny to realise that can't be just one way either. It needs to be fluid, and we need to be able to play different styles and different games.
Yeah, I think that's just modern football. I don't like every one of those players playing last night was brought up, not rigidly in a 4-4-2 and hit channels and get crosses in, hit the forward and get knockdowns. Every one of those players has been brought up through a system, whether, a few of them come through the Ireland under 17s, underage with Ireland. You go and see any of those camps now and watch how they're trained and how they're brought up and the programs they go through, and the same at their club level in England or Ireland. They're all coming through a system of modern football. So it's second nature to them to play from the back, to want to play. There's nothing wrong with being solid and defensively strong. We won't be able to play like that. That was one of my arguments when we played England, a year ago, whatever it was now, that we were way too open and tried to play too much like England, and it was easy for them, and like some of their games were going to have to be a little bit more solid, a little bit more defensive. And that doesn't mean, when I said we went more direct last night, I don't mean going direct as in hitting long balls. I mean direct as in we looked forward quicker and earlier with a pass. We looked to penetrate better, whether that was Qatar's poor player, Azerbaijan's poor player, or adjusting a little bit. I'm sure we talk about how much they analyze and how many videos they do. I'm sure they saw in the games in the last 6 months we were very slow building up. And when you have a team like us, when we don't have a Kevin De Bruyne, however, we have good players, technically good players, but you need to do things really quick. You can't just rely on a superstar to open things up. And I thought we have done that in the last couple of games. We did things really quick, played really well. A number of players you could mention who played excellent. I thought actually, just like going off topic, but Jeff Hendrick is the best in the last 2 games. Stephen has stuck with him, and he really seems to, I don't know, just the best I've seen him playing in Ireland jersey in a long time. So great to see that. He's a great lad, Jeff, and great to see one of the more experienced players still being involved and playing really well. So, but yeah, it's. Again, the manager's here in the job as well. Maybe he's, a bit more experienced on it and a bit more realization. I can't just play one way, a little, and there's not a change of formation, right? And it's just, it can be just a word. It doesn't even have to be a word on the, working on the training pitch. Just listen, lads, do things a little bit quicker. Goalkeeper, play it out a bit quicker. Be a little bit more, look up, find the front man a bit earlier, or whatever it might be. Just a subtle few words can make a big difference, and confidence. Beating Azerbaijan. We were a little bit ropey at times in the first half against Azerbaijan, but as the game went on, we played better, and that confidence from that then came out last night. And they can, confidence, winning breeds more confidence, lets them relax a bit, can enjoy it a bit more, and it just sort of steamrolls a bit. So hopefully, we're getting too far ahead of ourselves. But just because of where we've come from, 2 wins, I know 2 friendlies against those 2 teams, it still means a lot to beat those and score some goals and enjoy watching the 2 games. Sit there and enjoy it. And I'm going on, and I can try and get back to your question about in the past and the way we played. Well, a lot of players in the past were brought up playing a different way at their club, in a different way, style, and when it came to international football, that style sort of came out and followed on. But these players don't have that style, don't have that mentality. So it's, they're just playing what they play at their clubs every week. It's it's about, with Ireland, them having the confidence to win a few games.
I was going to ask you about Hendrick. You played with him. He was obviously someone that we had so much, hopes for and expectation. He was so good in the Euros in 2016. And it feels like, his club career kind of continued on, but his Ireland performances weren't there. And now his club career has really struggled in the last kind of 18 months. And it was the same with Ireland. And this season, I think that performance has been coming last night. And he was that player. I think everybody, even his biggest critics, took note of how well he played last night. Do you think, is that a confidence thing? What would be your kind of diagnosis of what's been going on with Jeff for the last couple of years?
You know what, with Jeff, I've always thought about it. I thought he had so much potential, and I played with him. And I played against him when he was at Derby, right? He was excellent at Derby, and he made his name at Derby, and he played under Steve McLaren, who would be more like a Stephen Kenny in style of play. And it suited him. And then he went to Burnley, and he's under Sean Dyche. And then, notice Burnley good under Sean Dyche, and he's excellent, but the ball does bypass midfielders a lot, and they're asked to do a different role. And he's very fit. Jeff Hendrick, he's able to do that role, but I don't think it brings the best out of him. And then the same with Ireland. He's under Mick McCarthy or Martin O'Neill, and it's a different style of football, and I don't know if it suits Jeff to the best of his ability. And then he joins Newcastle under Steve Bruce, and again, that I don't know if maybe I'm making excuses for Jeff or whatever. I'm just trying to think of a reason why he hasn't fulfilled potential as much. And Steve Bruce's style of football would be more in line with Mick McCarthy. Or Sean Dyche. And again, he hasn't played under someone who was more, where he played his best football was under sort of a more organised technical, I suppose, not organised, sorry, wrong, but a more technical style of play, maybe. And they would have played 3-5-2 as well at Derby, go a bit under Steve McLaren. So maybe it's just bring the best out of him because he's playing under a manager that playing to his strengths a bit more.
Yeah, well. So when Pep Guardiola takes over Newcastle, we'll see the best of Jeff Hendrick.
Yeah. No, listen, he's a technically good player, and he scores goals. And he did that as a youngster. Maybe lost his way a bit. Maybe I'm thinking too deeply into it or whatever. But he has played well in recent weeks, and he looks comfortable and confident and enjoying it.
Yeah, exactly. And as you mentioned there, and I was saying, it feels like it has been coming. He's been much better for Ireland this season, I suppose, is a way of looking at it when we've had all those 5 games. Not to dwell on it too much now, because we obviously we'll move on. And I mean, it was, as you said, like a win against a weaker team and then a friendly win. It's not the end of the world, but it does bring positivity. But when you do look at what the future holds, right? So whatever happens in these last 2 games, we have to go into a Nations League campaign and then a Euros campaign, and it looks more and more likely that Stephen Kenny will be there. You got Gavin Bazunu playing all these games. Obviously, Kelleher last night. You've got Amababa Daly coming into the team. Obviously, Darragh O'Shea's had a few caps as well earlier in the campaign before he got injured. You look at the front 3 last night, and it's got Callum Robinson either side of Jamie McGrath and Ogbene, who we wouldn't have really been thinking about too much at the start of the campaign. So on and so forth. It's all the way down. Jason Knight. It's all the way across the team, other guys who could come in. There's a lot more experience in there now when we start a new campaign. Everybody has a few caps. They're all used to playing with each other. While we're still always looking for these guys to break through at club level, there's kind of no doubt at the moment that, at least talent-wise, and in a weird way, it's almost like no more excuses for Stephen Kenny. When we go into the next campaign, we've got guys, a young, positive team with a decent amount of international experience and kind of ready to go and take that next step. It's kind of, let's leave this one behind us, but we have to be positive about our chances going forward, don't we?
Yeah, of course we do. And I spoke to you before. It took me 10 games, I'd say, 10 caps before I started to feel comfortable. And most of those players are now at that stage, getting the 10 caps or more. Listen, they had a tougher sort of first 10 caps than I did. I was lucky to be able to go into an experienced team, but it does take that long to settle in and feel comfortable and know your surroundings and the staff you're with and the players you're with. So they've got that out of the way. They're finishing the group with a couple of positive results. I still listen. Going into next campaign, I wouldn't be going, listen, we have to. I'd be more positive about our chance of qualifying. But as long as we performed well and we're in and thereabouts and giving ourselves a chance. Playing good football, it still wouldn't be the end of the world. These players, we're still bringing through players. You watch our underage results now, under 17s, under 15s, under 19s. We're getting really good results against top international teams. So there's a stream of players hopefully to come through to join into that. It might mean the next 2 or 3 years, but in 4 years' time, say. So I wouldn't be all about Stephen has to get these to qualify the next campaign. I would just you'd like to see a progression again. Think of a long-term plan. As long as we progress. We've struggled this campaign, finish on a positive note, go into the next campaign, be more competitive as we go through it, be in with a shout of qualifying, still with maybe 3 or 4 games to go, we mightn't qualify, but, it's not all about he has to qualify in the next campaign. That would be my feeling anyway. Maybe other people say, oh, listen, we have to finish top 2 or 3. That's realistic. It'd be great if we did, and you never know, but I just think you want to see a bit of progression. And go back, we were listening to those players. How good was Queevy and Kelleher last night? I've said to you, I'd have him ahead of Bazuna as Bazuna's been. He's done nothing wrong. I just think Kelleher's just a little notch ahead again. His calmness and comfortableness with the ball
Yeah.
I think that's where he's a little bit ahead of Gavin Bazuna. Both brilliant shot stoppers, both a great choice, both excellent to have those through there for a goalkeeping spot. But I just thought Stephen Kelleher just looked like, to me, he looked like a superstar in waiting as a goalkeeper. He just looked like he's been there and done it, and I just think he's going to be a star.
Yeah. How amazing is it that they're coming through together? Like, in some ways, you almost curse your rotten luck that, it's like, well, could work that away to 10 more years. But anyway, that's the way it is. And we're blessed to have the two of them, and hopefully their development continues. I do want to move off Ireland, but I actually can't go past. I completely forgot that we have to talk a bit about Callum Robinson, because this has been coming for him, I think, anyway. And it's just like, but he does score in bursts. We've seen it with West Brom last season. It was in the 2 games in a row, and then he goes on droughts or whatever. But even just his level of performance on the team and his ability to be our main attacking player, I do feel like even when he came on against Serbia after he'd been out of the squad for the first couple of days, he changed the game that day, and he was playing a very different role out wide. He has that ability to be our focal point, doesn't he? And we're waiting on Adam Ida and Connolly and Troy Parrott and all these guys, but 26,
That first goal was so good as well. Last night, the little link-up play, the little one-touch around the quick feet. I can't remember who it was linking up, the two lads linking up, and then the finish got a little bit of luck with deflecting. You need that. It wasn't a massive deflection. It was still on target, a shot, and he's hat-trick, and he could have scored a hat-trick or more against Azerbaijan. I know you said he seems to score 2 or 3 goals or nothing at club level in a game, but his link-up play, his all-around running, and he's, if he doesn't score, he's still involved, still, doing things on the pitch. It's amazing how he played last night, and you wouldn't categorize him as a number 9 or centre forward, would you? I know he scored the goals and all, but he's all-around play. He's not just the guy you're going to hold it up and bring people into play, whatever. He suits how they played last night. I don't know if he'd suit, away from home against Portugal or something in that role. You might need someone who's going to play slightly differently, but he could play off them. No, it was just nice. The 3 forwards last night, the way they linked up, said going forward. And he scored 3 goals last night, but he wasn't greedy. He wasn't just... He was setting people up. His link-up play was good. He was running channels. He was doing all the right things without just hanging in there and getting tap-ins and going, listen, whatever. It's just about scoring the goals. His all-around play was excellent. So I don't know him. I haven't played with I don't know if he was ever in the squad with him, but he seems like a really nice, good guy, despite all the stick he got last week. Just nice. Someone like that. We're looking for someone to score goals, and he produced when we really needed it.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, long may it continue as well. You were to the fore in his defence last week as well. Now that everybody's on his side.
I didn't jump on the bandwagon, Mick. I said.
Neither did I. I still don't understand his decision. I don't think scoring goals changes that, but at the same time, he doesn't deserve to be pilloried for it either. But we'll move on, because the Premier League is back this weekend. We leave Ireland behind us. Isn't it great that we're not so, remember, after the last international window, we're like, can we just forget about Ireland for a little while? Let's talk about Manchester United or whatever. It's not as negative this time. But speaking of Manchester United, I was looking at the table there a minute ago, Kevin, and they're 2 points off the lead and in 4th place. And I was laughing because it feels like they're in such a crisis. I know all the top teams have played each other and United haven't, but at the same time, they're away to Leicester this weekend. But we're going to concentrate on the Ladbrokes 1-2 free games. This from Saturday evening and from Sunday's games. They're this weekend. If you can play right now on Ladbrokes.com or on the app for free. You just pick the scores in the 3 games. If you get one scoreline correctly, you win a €1 free bet. If you get 2, you get a €5 free bet, and if you get all 3, you win €100 cash. Kevin did really well on the internationals last week. I think it might have been the €5, or maybe might have just missed out by a goal here or there. And the Scotland Israel was 3-2 instead of 2-1. I think that was
I definitely got that one goals wrong. Got the results right, but that's regular, isn't it?
There you go.
The issue.
Got to start on Saturday evening, London derby here. This is a really interesting one. Brentford versus Chelsea.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a draw in it. I just think Chelsea, listen, Premier League teams, they all have players away on international duty, but I think Chelsea's will have more. Everyone coming back in last minute. I just, trying to get everyone back into the squad, back into the club mode, arriving back in, I suppose, maybe today or whatever. And you don't have long to sort it all out. They're lucky, I suppose, they don't have to travel. It's right next door. That side to it. But I'm going to go. Brentford have just been really good, haven't they? And it's been
great.
Funny to see them the way they've gone about it in the Premier League. So I'm going to go for a score draw, 1 apiece.
Okay, so 1-1 in that game. Continue Brentford's arrival into the Premier League in style. The games on Sunday then, the David Unsworth derby, Everton versus West Ham. Two teams, West Ham maybe aren't firing on all cylinders the way they did last year, but Everton also kind of 2 points off the lead. They're going well. They're hammered at Villa, but everything else under Rafa has been really good so far. They've had a few injuries. I wouldn't know how to call this one myself. Actually, it's kind of a bit.
I'm sitting. I'm the same as you. I'm going the same as the score line as the one before. Just listen, it's hard. Very closely matched two teams, managers. I suppose Benitez probably has the one up on him there, but two good managers. But I'm going to go for a score draw, 1 apiece. I just can't. Could go either way. You could see West Ham going there and winning. Everton under Benitez. Look what I said. Apart from that result you mentioned, but yeah, I can't separate them. Going for 1 apiece.
That's perfect. 2-1 draws then going into what a coincidence that Sky Sports on Super Sunday's main event is coming from St James's Park this weekend as the David Ginola derby, as we'll call it, between Newcastle and Tottenham. I don't know what you make of all this Newcastle thing. It's fascinating, if nothing else, I would say, Kevin.
It's mad. Just seeing the owners and I can't think of the lady's name who's part owner as well, and they're in the training. At the training ground and around the training pitch and stuff like that. And then at the same time, Steve Bruce is getting sacked, and it's been openly spoke about that he's getting sacked. So is Steve Bruce there saying hello to him, knowing they're about to sack him? It's like it must be a weird feeling for the players, the staff, everyone. What are the changes going to be? How much are they going to spend? Are they getting rid of me this week? Are they just, if they're bringing all these players, I'm going to be total, I'm a goner. The manager knows he's a goner. So as good as it is, I'm sure the place will be rocking. I'm sure the Spurs or the Newcastle fans will have a great atmosphere there. It was one of the noisiest places I ever played, St James's Park, when they scored a goal. It was fantastic. So I'm sure that, St James's Park won't have been as good an atmosphere as a long time as this game, but I'm still going to say Spurs are going to win. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 away win to Spurs.
Okay, 2-1 away win for 1-2-3. I'll recap them in a minute, but just going back to the players in Newcastle, right? So, right, you're, I don't know, in the Manchester City days, you're like, I don't know, not quite Richard, you're Sylvain Distin or someone at that club, and that, right, they're coming in, they're going to buy 15 central defenders until they find the right one. They've got all the money in the world, but I still have to play for them for a while. Now, Newcastle are second bottom in the league, and they can't sign anyone till at least January. And it doesn't look like they're going to come in and just say, here's 500 million, spend it however you want. Whoever the manager is, Pep Guardiola. It doesn't look like that. So they still have to not get relegated this season. But all these players kind of know, what are we doing here? Are we in the shop window? Are we play? It must be really complicated. Like, in some ways, you go out and just play the game and you are where you are. But in other ways, it's like you do need to buy into a club. You need to buy into a culture and a purpose, I suppose, in some ways, to get the best out of yourselves.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I don't know what way this is going to go. I suppose the players will be thinking, some of the players will probably think, if I can play well at all in the next few months, I'll get a fantastic new contract out of this crowd. There's always that side to it. It's like they are getting rid of Steve Bruce. I've heard nothing since about it. Just in the first day, he was basically going, who they're going to get in, and who to get in. It might be a fantastic manager, but won't be used to relegation battles probably in the Premier League. And how is that going to go? And if they do get relegated, how do they get back up while being in the financial fair play rules and the Championship are quite strict now? There's just so many things are going to happen. So it's suppose, listen, you're saying they mightn't spend a whole lot of money in January. I'd say if they're still in the bottom 2 or 3, there'll be serious amounts of money.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of West Ham all those years ago when the Icelandics took him over and they were signing. They brought in Tevez. Who else? Tevez and Mascherano. And the City got relegated, didn't they? Did the City get relegated?
No, they beat Man United on the last day of the season, and Sheffield United sued them.
And there was uproar over it, wasn't there? So, I'd imagine something like that happening. Two players signing, or a few players signing for him that shouldn't really be signing for Newcastle, but doing a job. And if they can stay up this year, the world's their oyster, I'd imagine. But surviving this year won't be easy.
No, absolutely not. Just on Spurs then briefly, Harry Kane was taken off last night while England were needing a goal, and it was the right decision. He is not himself at the moment. There's been a sense all year, it's like, it's Harry Kane. He's never actually had a bad season. He'll kick into gear at some point. He's just a little bit out of sorts. He had a weird summer after the Euros, but ultimately he's with Spurs this season now. It'll all kind of come together. He's been terrible. Like, if I watched obviously the Villa match last week, and it was Son was the best player on the pitch and won that game for them on his own. Harry Kane's anonymous, and he has been in every Spurs game I've seen this season. It's isn't it?
Very worrying for them after turning down all that money.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? Like, I did Euros. I watched the final. They're talking about the reason is because he's not happy with not being let go on transfer. If you saw him play, and you did see him play in Euros, but the final in particular, he was absolutely useless for the whole game. I couldn't believe they left him on. If you a spare 120 minutes, Mick, go back and just watch him during the final of the Euros. He couldn't run, he couldn't sprint, he couldn't close down. He, to me, was the reason England didn't win the Euros. Watch it. They couldn't get out of their own half because he couldn't hold the ball up. He couldn't put pressure on the Italian centre halves. Two of the oldest centre halves tournament, brilliant as they were. He gave them no hassle whatsoever. He never ran in behind. He didn't hold the ball up. He couldn't close them down. His legs were gone from the first minute of the game. If you watch back that game, but they left him on, I'd imagine, to take a penalty maybe when it was kept going. I couldn't believe he was still on the pitch after 60 minutes, 70 minutes. And like, watching it here, I wasn't doing the game. I was sitting at home watching it. And I was paying a bit more attention to the strikers. And no one mentioned it. No one said anything about him and how he wasn't bringing England up the pitch. They needed him to be the one to get them up the field. And they couldn't get out of their own half after the first 5 minutes when they went 1-0 up. But he, to me, was the reason England were so poor in that final. And his whole Euros before that, he took a while to get off the score sheet in the Euros, and he wasn't the same player for whatever reason. I wouldn't put it down to just this transfer not going through, because before this transfer, he just looks lethargic or lacking energy or whatever, not sharp. And he did all through that Euros, and over that final, he was really, really poor. So big worry for Spurs. We said that we were sitting there. I'm sure we spoke about Mick, said, take the money, take 100 million. What are you doing not taking the money? And, as good as Daniel Levy thought he was by keeping him, there's 100 million down the drain plus another how many millions in wages if he doesn't kick back into gear. And he mightn't. He's at an age now, 29, I think.
27, I think, maybe 28.
Well, he's put a lot of work in, whatever. Maybe it's consistent over seasons. Maybe he just needs a break. He didn't probably have much of a break after the Euros and the build-up to the Euros. A lot of stress on him over the last few years, a lot of games, a lot of goals. Don't want to write him off, but something needs to happen. He needs, if you were his manager, tell him, I'd have given him a long summer break. I think he was back quite early. I know he took an extra week, didn't he, of his own accord. But, he didn't get much break. They got to the final of the Euros. He hasn't had much break. He's not injured in years. He plays all the time. So maybe it's just physical exhaustion, needs a long holiday. But he's not going to get it now, is he? He's going to see it out through the end of the season. But worrying for Spurs, because he's the reason, he's the difference for them the last years. He's why they did reasonably well, got to a Champions League final, and they're struggling without him.
Absolutely, yeah. And look, being England captains obviously takes a mental toll, I would imagine, as well. But look, it's not looking good for him. We'll see if he turns it around this weekend. Kevin's 1-2 free picks, by the way, is Brentford 1, Chelsea 1, Everton 1, West Ham 1, and Newcastle 1, Spurs 2 on Sunday. So possibly with Harry Kane getting on the score sheet there. So you can play yourself on Ladbrokes.com or on the Ladbrokes app now. Just log on, click on 1-2 free, pick the scores in the 3 games. If you get 1 right, you get a €1 free bet. If you get 2, you get a €5 free bet. And if you get all 3, you win €100 cash. Kevin, thanks a million. We're signing off with positivity this week. We'll be back fully talking about the club game next week.
Yeah, very happy to talk about some positive Ireland play. It's been brilliant.
Absolutely. And clean sheets, which you were most interested in.
Yeah, boring for the centre forward, isn't it?
Yeah, 7-0 on aggregate over 2 games is boring. Thanks a million, Kev. We'll chat to you next week, of course. We'll chat to you next week as well. If you're having a bet on the football or anything else this weekend, please always gamble responsibly and visit thelouis.net for more information. We'll be back with you with more build-up really soon. We'll have Stephen Ferris actually this week, looking ahead to this weekend's URC as well. So keep an eye on our channels for that. Talk to you soon.